Hi all, thank you very much for joining, and thank you especially for our special guest here, leader Jane Wu. I met him 2 years ago when we were start fighting against SB 147, and this time we are and now after what happened this year when the state of Texas passed SB 17, we really need to learn review the history of what happened 100 years ago, and so I'll hand to our another host, San Diego, and let's get this seminar started.
All right, thank you, Chuck. Can you all hear me okay? All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining today. I'm Santiago, a proud Texan, husband, and a father to 2 children. I'll be your moderator for this evening, together with Catherine, joining me from the state of New York.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Catherine. My family lives in Houston, Texas, and I've spent more than a decade in the state, having lived in cities such as Dallas, Austin, and Sugar Land. It's a great honor to welcome Texas State Rep. Jing Wu, chairman of the Texas House Democratic Caucus. As many of you know, Representative Wu has long been a dedicated advocate for civil rights and a strong voice for the AAPI community across Texas and the nation. Just a few months ago, Texas passed Senate Bill 17, and we've also seen similar racially discriminatory bills emerging in other states, some even threatening individual housing rights. Senate Bill 17 bans the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at Texas public colleges and universities, effectively dismantling initiatives that support underrepresented students and faculty.
And as a father and an Asian Texan, I myself is deeply concerned about the xenophobia these toxic bills create, the damage made to the local Asian and Chinese community, and what does that mean to our next generation of young Asian Texans. I know many of you who's on the call right now and many other Asian and Chinese families share the same concerns. We voiced out our concerns to the state legislature. We fought very hard, but SB 17 was still unfortunately passed. So now the question becomes, what happens next? Right. So let's now hear from State Representative Jing Wu, and please feel free to post any questions you may have under the Q&A section while Jing shares with us his thoughts, and we'll come back to address your questions at the end of this event. So Jing, welcome, and it's a great honor to have you with us today. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to pay attention to this very important issue. And some of you, if you've seen my presentation before, much of this will be familiar, but this is something important that we have to keep talking about, and we must keep educating ourselves about what has happened right now. But we also need to learn what happened in the past. Too many Asian Americans, too many, especially Chinese immigrants, come to this country not understanding what has happened to our own people in the past. And that history is very important because that history provides a guide for what will happen today and tomorrow. The history of our country is filled with hate and violence for our people. We are doing our community a disservice. We are harming ourselves by ignoring this history, by ignoring what has happened in the past, and ignoring the hatred that almost destroyed our people in this country in the past. We have an important job to do, and that is to defend our community. And in order to defend it, you must understand it. So let me talk about the rise of anti-Asian hate, how it translated into legislation, and how the new legislation is going to cause our community to suffer. Okay, give me 1 second. So one of the key points I want to make sure is clear is that the history of anti-Asian laws in the United States is long. That what we're talking about today is not a new thing. We're not talking about some new idea that's popped out of hating Asian people, hating Chinese people, hating Japanese people. This country has had a hateful relationship with our community since the very beginning. In fact, Asian Americans have been in this country for over 250 years. Since before the American Revolution, there were Asians in this country, but nobody cared when they were just very small numbers. And we'll talk about that as we go on a little further. But when the population started getting bigger and bigger, people started getting upset, and people started passing laws to keep us out. And I want to really talk about that. What we're looking at here is repeating the same hate and mistakes of the past. We've done this once before. We've apologized for it. We've repealed laws, but we're passing those same laws again now. All right. While all the previous laws that we're talking about have been ruled unconstitutional, we are in new times, and what was unconstitutional then could suddenly be constitutional now, and we need to talk about it. Okay. One of the really important things to note is while it seems like Asians have been in this country for a long time, the reality of it is that we have not been here in large numbers until recently. This is important to remember for you to understand why this hate is rising right now. Because prior to about 1970s, there were not really that many Asians in this country. The Asians that were left over from the gold rush, from the railroad, those are small in number. Most of them had intermarried and mixed away, and there were very few families left. In the time between the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1965, when the law was finally repealed, there weren't that many Chinese and other Asians that came in. Only after the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the repeal of the Chinese Exclusion Act did our people really started coming. Starting in about 1975, our population doubled every 10 years, not just Chinese, all Asians. And that rate of growth is increasing. So think about this, looking at the slides here. Before the 1960s, there really weren't many Asians in this country. We were a novelty, a circus sideshow, right? But starting in the 80s, the number started rocketing up, right? That's not the main problem. The main problem is that with this rise in population is also a rise in economic competition. Back in the 1800s, when they started passing laws against Chinese people and Japanese people, the reason was economic. When Chinese and Japanese people were dying on the railroad, dying in gold mines, where they were being just slaughtered on all sorts of nasty work jobs, nobody cared. It's only after those things were done and our people saved their money and started buying businesses. And they started putting other businesses out of business. And then they bought up those businesses. That's when people started getting mad. That's when they started passing laws last time. If you look at this graph here, our population increase coincides with this new rise of anti-Asian hate. Think about it this way. Back in the 80s, we had a few valedictorians graduate from high school and a few Asians went to Harvard. Maybe the population of Harvard was maybe 2-3% Asian. Then 1990s roll around, a lot more Asians here, a lot more valedictorians, salutatorians. Harvard population of Asians goes up to 15%. 2000s, an increasing amount of Asian immigration. Our population doubles again. Now, Harvard is over 30% Asian, Chinese, Indian, Vietnamese, Korean. And what you have to remember is not that we are displacing Black and Latinos. We are not, because their numbers are steady, are flat. We're displacing white people, and not just white people. The kids, the white students who are qualified, who are accomplished, they're still there at Harvard and Yale and everywhere else. The ones who are not are the ones who are only there because of their family's name, because of money, because of power. They're being told no. They're being told to leave. And it's because of us. And it's not just Harvard and Yale. Also, it's the C-suite. You look at corporate America. Again and again, what used to be completely white-dominated is now being infiltrated by Chinese, by Indians, by many others. And people don't like that. And we'll talk about that at the end. And I want to be clear about this. This slide talks about a very brief history of laws against Chinese Americans, Asian Americans in the United States. And this is just federal action, only federal action. If we included state actions, we wouldn't be able to fit it on this page or 10 other pages. But everything in red is something very negative. Everything in green is either neutral or positive. The history of our country is filled with anti-Asian, anti-Chinese laws. I want to make sure you understand that. And look, if you look at the very top, 1875 was one of the first times they started passing these type of really bad laws. So 1875, they passed the Page Act. The Page Act says, no Chinese women may be admitted into the United States. Why just women? Why not ban everybody? Because Asians and Chinese and Japanese were talked about as we were useful vermin. We were like rats, but necessary rats. They wanted our bodies to be here, to be blown up in the mines, to be crushed on the railroad, but make sure that we don't breed. Don't let the vermin breed. Don't let the rats breed. But it only took 7 more years before 1882, Congress said, forget it, we'll just ban them all. Then first women, now men, and everybody else. And the Chinese Exclusion Act stayed on the books, right, until World War II. In fact, the Japanese made fun of the Chinese, saying, how can you fight with people that do not even let you into their country, right? And so the United States, embarrassed about this, repealed the Chinese Exclusion Act on paper. They repealed it from the books, but they kept the policy in place by sheer force of will alone. They hated our people so much that they got rid of the laws on the books, but they made sure that the policy stayed in place for another 20 years just by force of will alone, okay? That the Chinese Exclusion Act, our people's ability to be in this country, was not repealed until 1965. I want to be clear about this. Listen very carefully. 1965 was not that long ago. You all know people who were born before 1965. The hatred of our people in this country was not a long ago thing. It's been very recent. And now, from 1965, nothing until the 2000s. 2023 is the beginning of the passage of anti-Asian and anti-alien land laws across the United States. Okay? And that's what we're here to talk about today. that the alien land law that we're talking about in SB 17 that passed in Texas, or SB 147 that you may have heard that we fought off 2 years ago, is the same law, but it's also the same law as it was passed in Texas in 1891. That's when our state passed it. But this was not a Texas alone thing. This was many, many states. Looking on this slide, on the left is the Constitution of the state of Oregon. They hated our people so much, they wrote it into the Constitution to ban us from their state. The first alien land law that was passed, this time, was from California. The first time an alien land law was passed was also California, with the largest Asian population, right? And one of the things I always have to note is I always stare at the picture on the right. And I really have a hard time thinking, what is the difference between those people in this picture and the people of the same time? What difference is there between them other than their race, other than where they come from? I want to make sure you understand that our people have been singled out for punishment before. And this was not Texas and California. Here are 15 states that found it so important to get rid of Chinese people, to get rid of Japanese people, that they put it into their constitution, their founding documents. 15 states. And make sure you note the comment at the very bottom. These laws mostly remained on the books for almost 100 years. Almost 100 years. Marked people were banned. And this is something that continues forward. Even since 1880, the courts, our governments, have known that this type of discrimination was unconstitutional. Courts in the 1800s found it to be unconstitutional. They knew, but they didn't care. They did them anyways. And look again, all those laws passed in the 1800s, many of them, most of them, were not repealed for nearly 100 years. We can't wait that long. Our people cannot be second class for that long. So in the past, I had all these slides talking about where Texas is and where everyone else is. All those slides are gone now because Texas passed theirs and many, many other states passed their laws. We've tried to fight it wherever we can, but this is a battle that we need our entire community to be engaged in, and right now they're not. SB 17 is probably one of the worst laws in the country, second only to Florida's. The law contains broad overreach, includes not only companies and governments, but specifically targets individuals. Individuals who have done nothing. Individuals where there is not even an accusation or evidence that they've done anything wrong, but simply because you are Chinese or any other of one of the groups, simply because you were born in the wrong place, simply because you tried to immigrate here, you are now banned from the American dream, banned from basic rights that everyone shares. But it also puts severe criminal penalties on realtors, on title agents, on all people who have a sworn duty, an oath to follow the Constitution and not discriminate. Now, it puts a criminal penalty on them. It encourages them to just not bother doing business with people who might get them in prison, to not sell to those people, to not call those people back, to not give those people access to the property, let them have an open house. This is a dangerous game. But it's more than just property ownership. Property ownership is just the beginning. Just as it was in the past, it never stops at land. And at this time, it will not stop at land either, because much of what I'm concerned about is already starting to happen. Because at the end of the day, land ownership is not the big worry. The main worry is that we are step by step going back down the path that leads to the Japanese incarceration, leads to US troops coming to your house with guns pointed at you, telling you and your children to get in the truck. This is a dangerous, dangerous game that we have played before. And we know this because the language and the discussions and the reasons for doing these things, for passing this exact same law, is exactly the same as it was last time. California's first anti-alien land law was passed in 1913, more than 30 years before World War II. Think about that carefully. Listen to that again. California's anti-Asian law, banning them from land ownership, was more than 30 years before the Japanese incarceration. Look at the second point. Really, if you look at the language, the rhetoric that's being used, the language of the way they discuss the need to do this, the way they talk about us, is not any different from the way they talked about Japanese people 80 years ago. One of the most famous quotes was General John DeWitt, the man who was in charge of all the prison camps, the concentration camps in the United States. He said, a Jap's a Jap. It makes no difference whether he's an American citizen or not. This is not a one-off quote. He makes this quote multiple times, and he says it in different ways, but it all has the same meaning. He's telling you that your citizenship will not protect you. Because Asian people, Chinese people, Japanese people, all Asians are a special danger to this country. And you can actually take quotes from World War II about the Japanese and replace Japanese with Chinese, and it would work perfectly today. And you can take quotes about the Chinese and the CCP, and you can replace that with Japanese and the emperor, and it would work exactly the same. And you have heard it. I know you've heard it. You have heard people say, well, you know, we feel bad. The Chinese people, they can't help themselves. Everyone knows, come on, everyone knows the Chinese are loyal only to the CCP. Even if they're American citizens, even if they're second generation, if they have a drop of Chinese blood, they can't help themselves. They said the same thing about Japanese Americans, the exact same things. The Japanese people can only be loyal to the emperor. And even if they have one drop of blood, they will betray America in favor of the emperor every time. I want to be very clear that national security is a real issue. It is an important issue. But if you are worried about the acts of a foreign government and foreign organizations, then you should target foreign governments and foreign organizations and not individuals who have done nothing. And there's many more questions. If you want to talk about national security, why is the state involved? The state doesn't have access to national security documents, to classified information. What is their basis? How is a state going to make decisions? They're going to watch YouTube videos? They're going to be on Ask Rock on Twitter about who's a spy and who's not? It's silliness. The problem is there already is an alternative. An alternative that not only is better, but has worked for a long time. And that is and that is the CFIUS committee, right? There is a federal committee made up of national security agents who already do this job of vetting all purchases over a certain amount in the United States by foreign entities. It's already done, right? The state does not need to be involved. But here's the danger, the real danger of this conversation, of letting them drive the public safety, the national security narrative. This is a narrative that sets us up with only one outcome. Because what ultimately they say, and ultimately what Donald Trump says about Chinese people, about Asian people, is that we're not more than just immigrants that they just generally don't like, but we are an active threat. And there's a slide in here that I took out, that prior to the 2024 elections, Donald Trump said that those Chinese immigrants, they're coming here, they're all men of military age. Like, who's not military age? Unless you're an elderly or a child. And they said, like, they're forming an army inside our country. Is there any threat greater than saying that someone is forming an army, a hostile army inside your own borders, inside your own home? Let me put it this way. If I told you there was a threat against the life and safety of your family, what would you do? Would you negotiate with that threat? Would you bargain with that threat? Would you ignore that threat and hope it goes away on its own? No. You would say to yourself, I will destroy that threat. I will make sure I get rid of that threat and make sure that threat never comes back and never harms my family. This is what they're saying about us. The fact that there are Chinese people, the fact that there are Asians in America, they're saying you are a threat. What do you do with threats? There is only one outcome if we are being talked about as threats to the life and safety of our nation. There's only one outcome. This is actually a slightly older slide. This is a little bit out of date. So this is just a short list of the states that have already passed some version of the alien land law that Texas just passed. This actually list is a little higher depending on how you rank them and how you view the laws. More than half of the states in the nation have already passed this. But the danger is not the states. The real danger is Congress. If this passes, then even states that refuse to will have no choice but to follow it. I want to be very clear. And in the past, I spent a lot of time trying to convince people of Project 2025, and because Project 2025 talks about this specific plan and specifically lays out that the objective is to end immigration from Asia, to end the ability of Asian people to be in this country, to eventually say everyone needs to get out. This is no longer a theory. I had to fight with Asian people, fight with Chinese people who said that Project 2025 is a lie, it's fake, it's real now. Trump has basically said it's real. They've admitted to it. They're carrying out every part of it word for word, including the anti-Asian parts. If you do not believe, if you do not respond, that's on you. All right. None of this is my opinion. None of this is my conjecture. I really just told you what the history of the past was, what's going on today. You can make your own conclusions. I really need us to fight. I want to just end with a couple quick things.
Donald Trump when you're so into facts, because his entire campaign is not based in facts. It was all based in propaganda and emotion.
I voted for Donald Trump for one reason only. His policies, if implemented, would slow the dispossession of whites in the United States. If you were to deport all illegal immigrants, if you were to think very hard about letting in any Muslims, all of this would slow the rate at which whites are becoming a minority.
Why are you so worried about the white dispossession of America?
Because I want my people to survive. That's what's strange. We don't control China. We don't control any place where whites are not a majority. And if we become a minority, we will not control our own destiny anymore.
I grew up in this country as a minority, as the children of immigrants. I was their first child born in America. And while I didn't have much possession or didn't much control, I really enjoyed myself. And I think that if you ask a lot of Americans, they would say that I had a lot to offer this country. You know, according to you, I guess I would be perpetuating the dispossession of white America.
That is true. That is true.
Would you say that you wouldn't want me in this country?
At some point, when my ancestors built this nation, they did not build it with the intention of giving it away to Mexicans or Chinese or Asians or to anyone else.
I want to be very clear about this. In the beginning, I tried to explain to you some of like the thoughts and feelings of why this is happening. And this is how I understand it, because I see things like this. And you want to be very clear. In this commentary, what he is saying, and if you listen carefully to what he says, it's very clear. He's not just saying that we can't let any more in. Just not letting more in is not enough. He's saying that they would still lose control of the country if they only just stop letting people in. What he doesn't say, what he implies in this is you have to get rid of the ones who are here. And this idea that this country doesn't belong to anyone other than white people, that may sound extreme to people who have not listened. If you actually listen to people talk and you watch politics, that's not really an idea that is held by a small, tiny minority. A lot of people believe that. And that's why this fight has been so difficult. So here's what I would suggest we all do. I have 3 steps for everyone. And there are 3 easy steps. Step 1, educate yourself. Educate the people around you. What I have talked about tonight, you need to spread to other people. What we've talked about here tonight, you need to take that to your family, to your friends, anyone who will listen and say, do you know what happened in the past? Do you know that they're doing the same things again? And this time, it's going to be different because this time we can fight back. So the second thing that you're going to need to do once you've educated yourself, educated others, is organize people. Organize them. If it's just your friends, just your neighbors, just your family, I don't care. Get that group together, start sending them information, start talking to them, start letting them know updates of what's going on, start sharing the news with them, and tell them we're going to start doing stuff. Number 3, once you've educated yourself, educated others, you've organized them, got them ready, take action. Go and do something. Whether that's going together to go vote, whether it's sitting down and talking through who you're going to vote for, whether it's sitting down and figuring out how you're going to organize, putting together a march, a protest, even writing letters to elected officials. Do something. Do anything. We have to start getting active now. So the 3 steps are, as easy as I can make them, educate yourself, educate others, organize everyone, and then take action. Figure out something to do. Okay? That's it. Hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I'm happy to take questions when we get to it.
Thank you very much, Jing. That was a really powerful presentation. And thank you really for sharing your knowledge and insights with us. Really made a lot of sense. We do actually have a couple questions from the group. And the first question is, you actually talk about the 3 steps. And we know that you've been passionate in supporting young people becoming active in civic roles. What is the best way to encourage more Asian Chinese Americans, and especially young people, to get involved?
Let me put it this way. This is a problem. The fight that we have on this is not a minor thing. This is not a small thing where if we don't do it, maybe they just let a fewer Asian people let into the country or something. This is what we call an existential crisis, meaning that this crisis deals with our existence. Whether we are allowed to exist in this country or not will be answered by this fight and this question. Our people have been banned from this country before. We can be banned from this country again. For me, this is my home. I know no other home. And this is the home of my children. They're natural born citizens. I cannot be president, but they can, right? And I'm not ready to leave my home without a fight because I love my home. And if you love something, then you better be ready to sacrifice for it. So the message to everyone, to the Chinese people, to the Asian people around this country, either fight or die. That's it. You have two choices. You can fight or you can lay down. And if you want to lay down, go somewhere else. I don't want to see you because I'm not ready to give up yet.
Okay, and then we have our next question. Jessica asks, please give us an update about SB 17. Have Attorney Drew found the right plaintiff, and when is the next date?
As far as I understand, the plaintiff, they've refiled the suit. I've not checked on see what's happened to it since. They've refiled the suit with the correct information this time. It should be going forward. I don't think there was a problem with the plaintiffs. I think it was what I understand, the petition was filed poorly. But that should be proceeding forward. But even before we get to that, the Florida case is headed to the U.S. Supreme Court before that. So that will probably be the bigger answer than the Texas case.
And our next question, is there a list of elective office candidates who are anti-Asian or anti-Chinese, and who are the ones who are fair to Chinese or Asians?
Let me put it this way. I know this is a nonpartisan group, so I will just lay down the factual basis of this, and you can make your own judgment. When we voted on this in the Texas House, 100% of Republicans voted for it, and 100% of Democrats voted against it. That's it. That's what you need to know.
Sorry, the next question we have.
Wait, I'm on this. I know there are people watching this from outside of Texas. This is not always true in other states. There have been Democrats in other places that end up voting for it. We're going to work on those people separately. But in all the states, every single time one of these bills was being carried, was being offered up, it was offered up by a Republican. The votes against the bills were almost always only from Democrats. And you can do with that information however you like.
Thank you, Jane. Many of us having actually talking with people around us, but one of the sentiment we got was that people believe, even they're Asian or Chinese Americans, they believe that they're already U.S. citizens or they're green card holders, so they kind of feel safe. Would you agree with that?
Oh, if they want to feel safe, just have them talk to some Japanese Americans. I know many of whom who were natural-born U.S. citizens who spent time in the concentration camps during World War II, right? So our citizenship. The citizenship did not matter in the past, and I'm telling you it will not matter in the future. Here's the reason why. And I had this argument with people in-person presentations before. Let me ask you. They said we don't like Chinese immigrants. The law is directed right now to visa holders, and in most other states directed to green card holders as well. What's the difference between a green card holder, a visa holder, than a citizen a Chinese American who's been citizen for only 2 years? What's the difference? There's not really a big difference. It's just time and an oath, right? And just because they're not after you now does not mean that they will not be after you tomorrow. One of the things I kept looking for around all states is what's called a retroactive provision, meaning that when they ban you from being able to buy property, from own property, do they go after property that you already own? So far, most other states, every state that I've seen so far, did not include a retroactive provision until now. Ohio's bill that they're looking to pass right now has a retroactive provision, meaning that if you fall under the criteria, being a Chinese immigrant, it does not matter how long you've owned your home, your business, or your farm. You could own it for 2 decades, and because you fit into the law, the government can now take your land against your will. Things can change. Nobody expected it to happen, but once Ohio passes theirs, other states will pass theirs. And just because the laws do not include Chinese American citizens right now, does not mean that next year they can just one state starts passing it and then all the other states will pass it too. And really, I want to be clear about this. They fundamentally believe, just like in the past, that there is something genetically wrong with Asian people. That while white people and Latinos and black people, they can understand and give new loyalty to the country of their home. But something's wrong with Asian people. Asian people can only be loyal to the emperor. Asian people can only be loyal to the CCP, right? They don't say that about any other group in America except Asians. Don't think that just because there's a citizen behind your name does not mean they still don't think the same thing about you. Go ahead. Are there any more questions?
Yes. So the next one is under the current U.S.-China trade tension and computation, what is the best approach for Asian Chinese Americans to really help bridge the gaps and de-escalate the Asian hate?
Yep. Look, right now we're really approaching the scenario of pretty much my greatest fear, that Donald Trump's second presidency is doing very, very badly. The economy is collapsing, And there is a thing called tail wags the dog. In fact, they made a movie about it. And that is the idea that if a leader is doing very poorly at home, the way to fix it is to start a war. And there's no easier war and better war for Trump to start than with China, right? All it needs, just like the Vietnam War, all it needs is something to happen in the Sea of China, something happening between China and Taiwan. One missile here, a boat hit there, something. And we as a community need to start preparing for that, need to start talking about it. That's why I'm spending so much time doing this. What we need to do is for our community to stand up now. My whole point in doing these presentations is not only to say we must fight against these laws and get them repealed or stop them from being enacted, but we must also start taking actions to build our coalition. We need to go into other communities. We need to talk to the Latinos, talk to the Black people, talk to the Jews, talk to the Muslims, and saying, we need all of you on board. We are too small. We do not have enough power. We cannot win if you do not help us. And we need to talk to all our communities saying, let's fight together. The people who seek to hurt the Muslims and seek to hurt the Jews and they seek to hurt the Latinos are the same people that are trying to hurt us. What I want us to do as a community is to stand up, get organized, find resources, and then put our arms around the other communities as they put their arms around us, and let's go to battle together. Let's go and change the minds of the public. One of the things we need, let me put it this way. When I grew up, it was completely okay to say gay slurs, right? To say anti-LGBTQ slurs and to say to the people. And over probably about 10 years, that community worked very hard to change the minds of people in how they use language, how they talked about people, and how LGBTQ people were accepted into this country. We can do the same thing. If our community puts in the effort, puts in the resources, we can tell America, we are Americans too. We love this country just as much as you do. We want our children to be successful like yours. We want to build this country, and we want to fight for this country with you. And that's a message that we need to tell all Americans, that we are not different just because we have slanted eyes and yellow skin. We are people just like you, and we need to fight for people to recognize that.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay.
The next one coming from a group is that if you look at the exact wording that was hidden in the anti-Asian bill, we found that the discriminative wording is now becoming more subtle and very, very deep inside the bills of lengthy and complex paragraphs. So as an ordinary citizen without much legal background, how do we effectively and efficiently uncover those hidden discrimination inside the harmful bills?
Yeah. So remember earlier I said, like, hey, they've known this stuff was unconstitutional, was illegal since the 1800s. So before that, those cases, they would actually name Chinese and Japanese people. They would specifically name us, right? Or they would say Mongoloid racists, right? They would call Asian people Mongoloid racists. But the court ruled that if you name the Chinese and Japanese people, then that becomes a 14th Amendment issue. That becomes a equal protection clause problem, and say that's against the Constitution. So what did they do? In the 1800s, they reworded all their laws to say, well, the people who cannot become U.S. citizens through naturalization, they may not own property. And all of a sudden, nobody cared. And the courts go, well, they didn't name anyone, but here's the problem. Under federal law, there were only two groups of people in the entire United States in the history of this country that have been banned from becoming naturalized American citizens. You know it, Chinese and Japanese, right? So even in the past, they used clever language to hide what they were doing, not because they were ashamed of it, because they knew it was illegal. And they found ways to make it legal, or at least to hide it from the courts. It will not be any different today. What we need today to help go through all the different stuff, we need to organize. We need resources. We have a few national Asian organizations, but they don't have the resources to have a legal team that will review the laws of 50 states every single day to see what they're doing. We need that though. But we need a community who is willing to put in the time and the money to pay for that, right? And I always tell people, do you see how the Jews protect their community? Do you see how much effort and how much money they're willing to put in to protect themselves and protect the community and make sure that people don't attack them? We need to do the same thing. And I think the problem is that one of the reasons why I go through so much history is because many people, especially Chinese coming to this country, thinks that, oh, America's great, nothing ever happens here, we've had no problems, we don't ever need to do anything, because there's never any problems. My point of the presentation is to remind you that we have had no rights in this country longer, much more time than we have had rights. Chinese people, Asian people in this country have only had rights for the last 40, 50 years, if even that. And just like everything else, if it can be given, it can be taken away. And what we have discovered in the last few years is rights that are given, if they are not constantly worked on, constantly improved, massaged, exercised, they will go away. This time, we need to fight for civil rights. This time, we cannot just rely on the Black people to fight. This time, the Asian people have to stand up for themselves and fight for themselves first.
I think that's very well said. Rights are we fight to get rights. They're not for granted. And we have a question from Hannah. Would voting exclusively for Democratic candidates on November 4th of 2025 help protect civil rights and promote fair representation in Texas?
Look, I mean, I'm trying to be careful about y'all's nonprofit status. Look, you can make whatever judgment you want, and it's not for me to judge. I will simply lay out the facts. The facts are, especially in Texas, 100% of the people voting against the bill were Democrats. 100% of the people voting for the bill were Republicans. Even Republicans who were Chinese immigrants. Even Republicans who were immigrants from places like Cuba and Syria. Like people who should have known better. People who I would say probably did know better, but refused to do the right thing. They understood. They still refused. I can't answer for them. You can go ask them yourself. But that's all I can tell you are the facts.
Thank you, Jane. The next one is about some of the news magazines attacking ordinary American citizens. We've actually seen some of very conservative news magazines attempting to attack ordinary American citizens who are not necessarily in alignment with their political views. The newspaper just spread out rumors about their families and even threaten their safety very disgracefully. So what's your advice for those who are actively still participating in civil rights fights but are concerned or facing this issue?
Let me put it the easiest way I can. If no one's attacking you, then you're not doing anything, right? If what you're doing is beneath the notice of people and that they don't even bother attacking you, then you're not really doing much. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But what I would say with you is this: if you take the time to stand up for our community, if you invest money, if you stand up and saying, I am proud to be Chinese American, and I will not be ashamed of it, and I will not sit down, I will not lay down, you will get attacked, period. Just as I get attacked. I get attacked every single day. And people ask me, how do you do it? How do you put up with it? I say, you talk like a racist attack against me is a new thing, that this just started recently. I have been dealing with racism in the legislature for my entire career. There has never been a time where there was no racism. So there's nothing new. But what I would say is this: when people attack me, I know that I'm doing something right. When people attack me, I know that I am effective. And I hold my head up high when they make fun of me, when they call me a communist spy, when they call me a CCP operative, when they call me all those things. I am proud of it when they do that, because I know that I'm getting under their skin. I know that my work is making them think twice. I know that I'm making them nervous, so they attack me. People will attack you too. Take it with pride. Take it with pride that you are taking the attack so someone else does not have to, right? And if you need to, come call me. I'll help you deal with it, and you can direct them and send them to me instead, and I'll deal with them.
I think among our community and even some of my friends, they support this issue, but some are worried about facing retaliation or even being targeted by ICE for standing up for their rights. So how can individuals participate and make their voices heard while ensuring their personal safety?
Listen, everyone should only do as much as they feel safe doing. And I cannot answer that question for every individual person. You make that decision yourself. But let me tell you this. It is their job to make you afraid. Part of authoritarianism, part of fascism, part of the reason why you might have left China, left other countries, was because those governments, when they don't like what you're saying, they make you fear. Right now, what's happening is no different. They will use fear at every turn to keep you from fighting, to keep you from standing up for your community, to keep you quiet, right? And sometimes all it is just fear. They just want you to be afraid. What I am asking everyone to do, what I'm especially asking for the Chinese community to do, is to put away the cultural fear, the idea that someone is going to come attack you and everything. But there are some things worth fighting for. I love my family. I would do anything to protect them. There is no sacrifice too great when it comes to my family. And this sacrifice, whatever it is, this is for them. But it's also for you. It's also for everyone else. If you care about your future in this country, if you love the idea that this is your home, if you love the idea of being an American, if you love the idea of your children having a future here, then fight. Everything we're fighting for is difficult. And every fight has consequences. Every fight has risks. But if you love something deeply and truly, you will make sacrifice for it. I'm ready to sacrifice. I'm asking everyone else to find out if they're ready to sacrifice too.
Thank you, Jin. That makes a lot of sense. The last question from the group. Many of us actually, call the state representatives or, write emails to them during the SB 17 fight. And I think you mentioned about, writing a letter to your representative. What other best ways do you recommend individuals to reach out to their representatives about such issues or concerns? And how do we really hold the state legislators accountable for, discriminatory laws in the future?
So I would start, like, everybody, we need to talk to our Asian chambers. We need to talk to our other chambers of commerce. We need to talk to our realtors associations. We need to talk to the title associations. We need to talk to everybody who is involved in commerce and business. But we also need to talk to all our other officials too, the city officials, the county officials, the federal officials. We need to talk to everybody and let them know that this is an issue that our community cares deeply about. That if they ever want our support in the future, they better be right on this one issue. Because you cannot say that you love our community, but at the same time support a law that says we don't want you here. Right? So we should, at this time, even though SB 17 is already passed, we should continuously have a campaign to keep talking to our elected officials. Do you know that they passed SB 17? Do you know what that law does? Do you know how much that's going to impact our local community? Do you know what that's going to do to our community here in Houston? Talk to everyone. Keep getting in their face. Keep talking to them. Don't let anyone forget. Maybe the next time we go back and fight this, maybe we go and repeal it. And maybe next time, in addition to state reps, we have city council members, we have county commissioners, we have federal officials who sign on and say, we are not a part of that process, but we are joining the community to say, that is bullshit. You need to repeal that law right now. Right? Build the army. Build the support that we need. It's not just our community. It cannot just be our community. It has to be everyone. And by the way, on that same note, this also means, listen very carefully, especially the Chinese community. This also means that when there are fights with the Black community, when there are fights with the Latinos, when there are fights with the Muslims, the Jews, and the LGBTQ, we go and fight those as well. And let me be more clear about that. Over this time, over these many years, I have heard repeatedly from Black communities and Latino communities who say, why should we help the Chinese? Why should we help the Asians? They never come help us when we ask them to. Isn't that right? Why should they come help us if we never help them? Even though we're being attacked by the same people. What I would ask for everyone is, when we're going forward, stop thinking of our own problems alone. Start thinking about it in a way that says, these are our problems, all of our problems. If we make alien land laws a problem not only for the Asian community, but a problem for the white community, a problem for the Black community, a problem for Latinos and everyone else, I bet you we fix it. But the problem is that they don't know that this is a problem for us. We need to start talking to them, but we also need to put our arms around their shoulders and say, hey, I appreciate your help. When you're ready for my help, I will be there too. We cannot be alone. We will die.
We had a very engaged audience, so we have actually a really good question from Amanda. I know we're running a little bit behind time, but many Chinese immigrants appear to focus primarily on educational opportunities for their children, while paying less attention to issues related to human rights. So what kind of existing organizations or activities could help raise awareness and educate Chinese immigrants about these topics?
So this is actually a huge problem. And this problem is because our people came here very recently. Our people are basically the only people that came here after civil rights, Asians, right? Latinos, Black people, they came here before civil rights. And so they knew what the struggle was. They knew how much they suffered before civil rights. But a lot of Chinese people come here in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Everything feels great. You have all the rights. In 10 years, you can go from having nothing to be a millionaire. No big deal. And you don't understand why there is a need to fight, why there's a need to fight for civil rights and our place in this country until now, right? These last few months, I've had a lot of Chinese people call me up and saying, hey, I think I know how Black people feel now. Because we went to our elected officials, we begged them for mercy. We begged them to say, look at us, we're human beings just like you. And they said, no. Something so simple, just treat us like all other human beings. And they said, no. Now you know how those communities felt before civil rights. And that's how it will be once civil rights are taken away from us again. So all the communities, all the families who came here, who thought that just by working hard and studying, that will protect you, it is time to be educated. The people here watching this, you need to go educate them to say it is not enough. Money and education is not enough. We need power. We need voice. We need rights. So, yeah, sorry. What was the back half of that question? I forgot.
Amanda was asking what type of organizations and activities.
Sure. Look, in Houston, there's OCA Greater Houston, there's TMAC, there's a few other ones. here's the easiest thing that I can tell you. If you are not sure if there's an organization that will help educate and spread the message, it's you. You are now the organization, right? If you're in a community and say, hey, I don't know anyone who's going to come educate people and talk to people about this, it's going to be you. You just volunteered, okay? This is a time that everybody will need to step up and take responsibility for their own part of the world. No one asked me to do this. I do this because this is my family. I do this because this is my home. I do this because this is my community. And I need other people who feel the same way, saying we have had enough. We will not lay down. We need you to be willing to make those sacrifices and to step up. If there's no one raising their hand, then it's you. That's it.
I'm with you, brother, till the end.
Oh, thank you, Jing, for such a very well-prepared presentation. I take notes, especially how to act now, the education, organize, and take action. So hashtag EOTA. And so for education, I would also recommend to read books on the history, on how to gain leadership. For example, I recently started a book club called the Yisheng Book Club. We recently read a book on Luke's theory on power, on the third dimension of power. The ones who are in power will use propaganda to control population. And in our fight against alien land law, in my view, the national security is largely a sham propaganda piece to try to mind trick us. So that's something I learned from reading. So I would recommend.
Let me put this. I don't have any books on leadership because I kind of live leadership. But here's a good book. It's called Driven Out. It is about the Chinese American experience prior to the 1900s, right? This is the story of what happened to our people. I think if more Chinese Americans knew the history of our people, they would be more scared and more angry. I don't want to compare us to the terrible things that were done to Black people, but if there was a second place for suffering, I think our people might take second place. Because if there was a burning of Black Wall Street, the same thing happened to us. Anytime that Chinese people built up a community, built up a small town, built up wealth, people came and murdered them and then burned the town every single time.
Yeah, I agree. I read the first chapter of Driven Out. It detailed the incidents where entire town was ordered to leave, and they have to pack everything within 2 days. So it's it's not as horrible as the lynching, everything, but it's still unimaginary. And
let me tell you this: there is a reason. There is a reason why elected officials now recently have really gone out of their way to have them not teach as much history anymore, because what they realize is the more students learn about this type of history, the more angry those students get, and the more those students will get involved and demand change and be a part of the process and run for office and vote and all these other things. So if they don't want us to know this history, what should we do? We should learn the history.
Read the actual true history. And the second is organize. And Jing already said that, but I need to really repeat. When you confide the right organization, you need to organize yourself. And on this, our organization is Jing is very concerned. He keeps referring us as a nonprofit, but we are an organization still in the process of organizing. So we don't use this yet. So you don't need to be that careful.
Okay.
So third, take action. I'm thinking about maybe participate in the rallies, like a noting rally recently, if you are comfortable, and you said letter writing, and I would add a donation, because in USA there's a huge problem of money politics. So money talks, and donate to go ahead.
There are 100 things you can do. Find what you feel comfortable doing, right? And the comfort level for everyone will be different. Some people do not want to go out to protest because it's too many people and they can't handle it, right? So that's true. Maybe you should go knock on doors. And if you don't like knock on doors, maybe your job is to be on WeChat, to talk to all the Chinese people, to talk to maybe some former Trump voters who are Chinese and saying, do you know what they're doing to us? Do you know what's going to happen if we keep supporting him, right? And look, if you get a big group together and they want to have this presentation and have Q&A with me, set it up. I'll be there.
Okay, and one last thing is I want to emphasize is to vote if you are a citizen in this election and in the coming election. So, for example, there are several states are trying to pass, and in Texas they already passed voting suppression laws. So I recently visited Maine. They are trying to pass a Proposition 1. It's a voter suppression law that prohibits voting email and voting ID law, something like that. And also in California, the Proposition 50, thanks to Leader Wu's heroic access to Illinois.
There's some easy actions. Text all your family in California and tell them vote yes on Prop 50, like now.
Yeah, because it's voting right now. It's like, Jane, can you like tell us about the Proposition 50 a bit?
Sure. So here's a short end of it. In Texas, Donald Trump is trying to cheat. He's forcing the governor to redraw the maps in Texas after we already redrew them just a few years ago, right? No one does that. It's not allowed by law, and it's illegal, right? And it's going to go to the courts, but they're doing it anyways because they think that the current Supreme Court will let them cheat, okay? Here's the problem. If they cheat and we don't respond and don't do anything and there's no consequence for them cheating, guess what they're going to do again? They're going to cheat again, right? So one of the things we did was we talked to California and said, California, you have to give them a reason to not cheat. So California passed a law that says if and only if Texas cheats first, they will redraw their maps, but their maps will not be illegal. Their maps will be approved by their voters, which is Proposition 50, right? And so California is what we call fighting fire with fire. They want to get 5 seats out of Texas. California will say, we will draw 5 seats and we will hang them there, leave them right there and not do anything unless Texas does it first. So this is a safety net for the whole country. So even if Trump cheats in Texas, California will make that cheating mean nothing, right? And look, other states are trying to do it. Ohio is thinking about it. Missouri is going to do it. North Carolina just passed theirs yesterday. They're cheating too. So, but other states have looked at this and said, you know what? We don't want any part of this. We have to go tell wherever you are, like if you're in another state that they're thinking about doing this, you need to call the elected officials and say, nope, don't do that. That's cheating. That's wrong. That's un-American, right? If you're going to play, you play fair. That's the American way. So if you have friends, you have family in California, please send them a message to go vote and vote yes on Prop 50. It will help protect the Asian community.
Right, and we are very over time, and thank you for everybody's time to participate, especially leader Jane Wu. And I think our community needs to and will get prepared to work together, especially here in Texas, to revoke SB 17 in the coming legislative session in 2027. And we'll need everybody's Jane's leadership and everybody's participation on that. And thank you.
Thank you, Gene.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Have a good night.